So here's a few news articles that I thought were interesting. This one was pretty amazing and particularly relevant to this web class. There was a hack on Solana that stole 98,000 Ethereum, which is an awful lot of money. Ethereum's worth about $3,000 each, so that's a pile of money. And what happened is they had a Solana. Well, I'm kind of quite sure what Ethereum is doing on Solana. It should be something else there. Anyway, the point is, in order to make a transaction, you had to have a valid signature and from a trusted person, a guardian, correct. If it was an invalid signature from a guardian, it would not match. But the point is, they did not, in fact, check that both of these conditions are true. They just checked that both of these conditions are equal. So if both of these conditions were false, it would let the transaction through, which is kind of a mind-boggling error. And like they say, for programmers, the check was equals equals instead of and. You had two logical conditions that had to be equal, not two logical conditions that both had to be true. Yes, a fake name and a bad password and you got in. Yes, that's essentially right. So that cost some large amount of money. Anyway, this is the thing about Web3 and all cryptocurrency space. These smart contracts have so much money and the software is such garbage. That's why I've been teaching workshops in blockchain security, and I'm still improving those workshops. There's a bunch of training products for blockchain security and for smart contract security, and very few people are interested in learning it, but the pressure will build. It's just like every other new field. Everybody tries to pretend the security problems don't matter, and they will continue to get hit in the head by bigger and bigger hacks until they realize the security problems matter. This is kind of like one of my consulting gigs where I'm consulting for a major bank. I notified them years ago about a vulnerability, and at that time they didn't care. But a few years later, they're back wanting help securing their stuff. So the time will come for these smart contracts to shape up. A year or two ago, the American government told everybody involved in the American government and military to stop using Kaspersky antivirus because it was the source of a breach that led to a major worm. Some contractor put it on their machine, and that leaked it back to Kaspersky, and that ultimately found its way to the Russian military. And now Germany is, of course, doing the same thing anybody would say, which is even though Kaspersky claims not to be part of the government and not to be controlled by the government, it is ridiculous for any Russian company to pretend that they don't have to obey whatever Putin says. This is like Huawei, the same thing. Huawei is a Chinese company. They say, well, obviously the Chinese government can just come in and take their data at any time, and we can't trust them if we don't trust the nation of China. And the same thing is true of Kaspersky. You certainly shouldn't be using any Russian software. I mean, I wouldn't use Telegram, which is a Russian chat client. I wouldn't use Kaspersky. Obviously, right now, since basically the whole free world is very close to being at war with Russia, it's very unwise to have Russian software on your machine, especially antivirus, which runs with the highest privileges and takes updates all the time and sends samples back to Russia. You certainly don't want that on your machine. Yeah, Telegram is Russian. Your stuff is going straight to Russia. So I recommend getting rid of Telegram and using Signal. Although I think the actual owner of Telegram left Russia and claims to be opposed to Russia, but other people claim he cooperates with Russia and hands over the data. It's not 100% clear where the Telegram... I saw some information about this. In fact, there's the issues coming up. Let me find those articles. Because there are people that say, yeah, Telegram, here's the first one, probably the most relevant. Yeah, and here you go. Okay, here's two articles, and I'll put these in the chat because this is important. This is from EFF, a very reliable organization, talking about how you shouldn't be using Telegram if you're in Russia or Ukraine, not just because it's owned by Russia, but because the data is not properly encrypted. All the chat is stored on their servers unencrypted. And so they do have the data to hand it over to government agencies that might ask for it. And here's people who claim that the owner of Telegram has long collaborated with state security, which, of course, this is not like proven or anything, but it seems very likely. Yeah, well, a ton of people in Ukraine are using Telegram. It's very popular. It's being used for all kinds of military, interrogation of prisoners and on the front line in the war. It's very popular in Russia and in Ukraine. It's kind of the standard like Facebook. But anyway, you'd be a lot better off using Signal. Signal. Well, for people still in Russia, I have no idea. I know they're blocking everything in Russia. The best one I recommend is Signal. That's what the EFF recommends. Signal is put up by Moxie Marlinspike, who is an expert cryptographer. Yes, I think everything else might very well be blocked in Russia. I don't know I don't know the details, but yes, I think that's true, which is probably because Telegram is cooperating with the Russian government. That's probably why they haven't blocked it. I'm just guessing, but yeah. But I mean, anyway, Telegram does not encrypt your stuff and hide it from the government, not at all. In fact, it's probably just giving your stuff straight to the government. So I certainly wouldn't use Telegram if there's any alternative. And Signal is an American company, so it's a far better alternative. Yeah, anyway, here's another issue. If British publishers want to publish books, but if you publish a book in China, the publisher must obey Chinese law. And just as saying that there is a war in Ukraine is a crime in Russia, saying, for example, that Taiwan is a nation is a crime in China. So if you try to publish a book, books in published by this British book publisher must not make these statements that are forbidden in China, because to make their books cheaper, they're publishing them in China. And so this is the issue when you have censorship laws. A censorship law in one area will affect other areas. And this is why Kahoot, the people I use for quizzes, people have been complaining, if you make a quiz that includes the word trans in any question or answer, like you talk about a transoceanic cable or anything like that, your account will be disabled because they have interpreted the laws in Utah and Texas which forbid any discussion of transgender people to grade school students as being a crime, and so they are blocking any quiz that might include those things and freezing any account that does it because they're afraid it would expose them to legal liability in Texas or Utah, which is probably true. So it is a big issue when you start passing censorship laws in this international world. The safest thing for a company to do is to carefully go to the lowest common denominator and make sure not to say anything that would offend anybody. Weiwei? Yeah, what they kind of said, this move is getting in front of it. Well, I'm not sure. Anyway, the dude in the pics, this guy? Oh, the dissident artist, Weiwei. Yeah, he was cut from publication, yeah. Anyway, this is, when I was a kid, I was used to this. All grade school and K through 12 and really a lot of college too was a matter of carefully not offending anybody and avoiding anything controversial. And that's the silencing effect of these laws. So anyway, Putin, now all the airlines have pulled out of Russia and they're demanding return of all their planes for the airline leasing agencies, and Putin has now grabbed those planes and nationalized them. And this is a big step forward. Or it's not exactly forward, but this is a big step towards making Russia a permanently isolated hermit kingdom like North Korea, because once you just grab companies' property and nationalize it, China did this about 4 decades ago, then nobody will ever invest in your country again. How can any American company invest in Russia if they're going to just steal your stuff, which is what he just did for the planes? And I'm sure that from Putin's point of view, this is just tit for tat for all the sanctions. But the point is, it poisons international finance and international investment. Clearly, this is there's no way back from this. I remember I went to a presentation 20 years ago for the Chinese representative at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco, trying to get Americans to invest in China and promising that he wouldn't nationalize our stuff. And everybody in the room said, I don't trust him. I think he'll nationalize our stuff. I'm not going to invest in China yet. It will take many decades for anyone to ever be willing to invest any money in Russia after they start doing things like this. So Putin, in many ways, is acting like there's no tomorrow and like he can get away with anything. It's crazy. Anyway, so I think that's enough news. Let me stop this one.